Oh, um, there's a very interesting quote that I read in a math book a few years ago. As usual, I don't remember the quote. I do remember the quote, but I don't remember the author. But anyway, the quote goes, "Interesting things are found where opposing forces meet. And in many ways, computer science is at the meeting point of many opposing forces. Theory, so let's say math versus engineering, efficiency versus dynamism, good, respectful user experience versus venture capital. I could probably go on forever. Our next speaker, Rickard Andersson, went from programming in functional programming languages to wanting to get closer to the real machine, which eventually led him to Zig. And at the same time, because of a personal need, he learned how to code by voice, finding in a way, another dimension where the abstract art of expressing sound ideas meets the harsh mechanical truth of the physical world. The title is Coding by Voice in Zig, and Rickard, the stream is yours.
Thank you, Loris. That was very poetic. This is going to be a very practical sort of talk. The main part of it is dedicated to a demonstration of writing Zig code by voice, but let's jump into this and see what we can figure out about coding by voice. So what does it mean? This is what we're going to go through. What does it mean to code by voice? Because I think a lot of people are probably, they don't know what it means. And if you haven't seen anyone do it, it can be hard to sort of, it can be hard to visualize this, right, in your mind, what actually happens when you code by voice. We're also going to go through shortly why you might want to do it and who might want to do it, and then how, which is the practical side of what does it actually mean in practice to write code by voice, like what are the practical considerations. And also a bit about how well does Zig do in this regard. So let's get through it. So from an ideal perspective, coding by voice is essentially speaking to your computer and your computer understanding you. Reality does not really match this. The reality is rather that you effectively speak, for the most part, people usually speak something like Vim to their editors. Also, they speak handcrafted grammars, handcrafted for certain languages, certain programs, and so on. And what happens when you do that is usually you bump into every issue that the English language, because people primarily use this, of course, every issue in the English language will essentially bite you. There are a lot of homophones, things that sound alike, and so on in the English language, and you end up essentially bumping into all of these. Why might we want to code by voice? Well, a lot of people obviously have disabilities that essentially make using a keyboard very hard. They might not even be able to use a mouse and so on. For these people, obviously, they will have started out essentially coding by voice. And this is entirely possible. We might also have typed too much, and at some point we will cause damage to our hands. We might also have typed too much and played too much StarCraft and Quake and every other game out there, and we feel like our hands are going to fall off at some point, and maybe we wish they actually would, so they would stop hurting, right? This was the position I was in at some point. It probably wasn't as bad as I made it sound on this slide, but my hands were essentially in a state where typing, when I got up in the morning, typing for work, they hurt a lot. And the nerves in my hands were essentially hurting just from the constant, constant work of typing all the time. And this, of course, this can depend on a lot of things. You can have bad form. I personally, I think I have bad form. I learned it on my own at some point. And yeah, when you're self-taught or whatever, when it comes to typing, it's probably not the best situation. I also worked a lot at some point and typed a lot as a result, wrote a lot of code, and this ended up hurting my hands a lot, combined with the StarCraft and all the things. And so I had to find a solution, and that solution obviously was coding by voice. And how do we do this then? Well, most of the solutions actually are based on one single program, or rather one single base program for dictation called Dragon. The version I use is Dragon Professional Individual 15. This was called Dragon Naturally Speaking before, and that's what the product is still based on. This is an old product. They've Nuance, the company that makes this, they've been making this product for a long time. Below this, we use, or rather, on top of this, I guess, we use a program called Natlink. This actually interfaces with Dragon, and so Natlink, then we use a library called Dragonfly on top of, in order to script Natlink. And so this is the part where sort of the customization on your part, the user, comes in. You write these grammars in Dragonfly. And the hierarchy of these is essentially a low-level grammar, where we essentially specify characters, symbols and characters. And this allows us to speak Vim, essentially. And then we have a higher level layer where we can specify things like format whatever I'm going to say in a certain way. And we'll go through all of these. On top of that, then, you also have higher level language layers, or these can be application layers, where you can do advanced branching based on essentially you say a thing and it might branch into a decision tree and so on. And so the lowest level layer essentially looks like this. We want to say the letter A. So we say air. B is bat, and so on, right? And you can see here that we use ship instead of shift, and so on. And so we say, when we say ship air, that's actually uppercase A. These symbols here also have names, of course. We can't very well say right curly brace every time. So we say things like lace, race, lack, rack, lice, rice. These are all personal choices where the user obviously chooses which things to say here, right? You might customize these over time because you find that rice actually sounds to the dictation as race sometimes, and so on. The important thing here is that you have a way to actually say these low-level operations, because this is essentially how, for the most part, with my scheme at least, you'll move around in your editor and you'll sort of do the normal code browsing that you would do in Vim, for example. And so on. Here we can see that we have sequences, of course. You can sequence these commands, so it's not that you have to say them just one at a time, waiting for your software. You can say drum sit dub, for example, for di quote, double quote, and so on. So this is essentially, we can see here in the bottom right that we want to do fairly simple things. Like if we're familiar with Vim, for example, we have this %s debug info and so on here, where we want to replace the word debug with info everywhere. Everywhere it shows up in a file, right? And we have this very long sequence. So this obviously begs a much neater solution where we can say less and still get the right result, right? So we get to a higher level layer where we specify formatting, we can say words and have them output properly, right? So immediately in this, we can see that we have the command say, and then we say a phrase. This will simply output that phrase. So say debug will just output debug, right? So we don't have to spell debug now. If we say snake, this is it. We get this score, is score, it, and so on. So these are obviously very useful in programming languages because we have different casing for different things and so on. In Zig, obviously, this is not a consideration that is technical. It's more cultural. It's a style issue to a large extent. But in many languages, this makes a big difference, right? And these are essentially, in your grammar, you just specify these as functions that modify strings. So you're completely fine to make your own. For example, this ADA casing that I've made has not been there the whole time, and I don't personally need it, but I added it just to do it. So even if you have an exotic casing scheme, it's not going to be an issue as long as you can write a function to do it. So we can see here in the sequences that the debug, replacing debug with info everywhere has become considerably shorter, right? We have :person / say debug / say info and so on instead of spelling these out. And essentially, you will just use these in your normal Vim fashion, essentially. You will just say camel when you need a camel-cased identifier and so on. And these, again, are, you can sequence them with normal letters and so on to get this sequence of commands. Where it really gets interesting, perhaps for the higher level and the day-to-day sort of writing new code style, is higher level layers where we have advanced grammars. And I don't have examples of these because I will show them, show the Zig ones. But what they do is you can effectively speak your programming language. And if that sounds odd, I hope that the demonstration will show what that means. And these are very useful, of course, to get consistent structure. Obviously, when we type things, at any point in time, we essentially have a choice to misuse or mistype a feature and so on. And this can be varying levels of dangerous or bad or just small nuisances, right? But if we essentially say for loop, just as a command, right? Very simple command, this can output a for loop for us, sort of like a snippet, right? We can then extend that into a more advanced grammar where we say for loop over something, which will automatically fill in something to iterate over and so on. And these sort of ensure that you're using the features, for example, a for loop or typecasts and so on, correctly. And there are some downsides, of course, with higher level grammars. They can be, you can sink a lot of time in these. And you have to effectively use voice coding with the language for some time to recognize needs for certain parts of the grammar. You very likely will not, you will not see, for example, that supporting a certain keyword is important until you have a program that requires you to do that constantly. And if you use the lower level grammars, the Vim bindings and the just saying the casings and so on, you might actually type this wrongly all the time. And so you might recognize at some point that using this feature of the language actually requires a more advanced grammar, where you, for example, say cast something into U64 instead, because you constantly forget that it's int cast and not something else. And like I said, this can be a massive time sink. If maintaining an Emacs config or a Vim RC is a time sink, I think this one dwarfs these, because it's obviously a thing you can work constantly on, and you can always make yourself a little bit more effective, right? And this kind of changes over time as well. Your needs change with a project. When you write a lot of new code of a certain character, you kind of bump into a lot of features of a language. And when you only maintain code, suddenly the lower level bindings become a lot more important, because just browsing your code kind of just requires these small movements, the Vim movements and so on. So you might not need these advanced grammars anymore, and you've sunk a lot of time into them and so on. So on to the demo. And full disclosure, I'm a little bit nervous, but I hope we'll get through this. So here goes. Wake up, focus demo. wake up, on, public function main, escape, find score sun, together any error, bang, say void, escape, find race, sit slap, constant argument, try method, say process, escape, find score sun, air red gust, control space, go one down, tabby, escape, find rise, drum purse, air, library dynamic memory, prick, snake page allocator, escape, on, constant program name, indexing 0 into argument, escape, on, slap, if arguments.len is less, escape, ship find air, cap each, say arguments, prick, look each near, escape, find rise, sit 3, escape, find race, sit slap, escape, find kick, 4 kick, ship on, constant standard out, sit on prick, say get, control space, go 2 down, tabby, prick, say rider, lice, escape, 5 gym, ship on, try method, escape, cap cap, try method print on standard out, semi, escape, harp sit, dub, proper usage, colon, space, lace, race, space, langle, say word, wrangle, space, langle, say files, prick, 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 wrangle, backslash near, dub, spammer, prick, lace, snake program name, escape, gym on, tabby, method exit on process, semi, escape, harp sit, 1, escape, gym on, slap, constant word, indexing 1 into arguments, escape, on, constant files, indexing 2 onwards into arguments, on, backspace, escape, on, constant directory, find sun, brick, cap, whale, drum, lice, escape, on, variable file buffer is undefined, escape, ship find score sun, index 1 million, urge 8, escape, on, slap, for loop over files binding life, escape, ship find look, cap each, say file, escape, bat, cap each, say file, escape, find race, hit slap, constant file descriptor, try method, escape, ship find trap, cap, trap, semi, try method open file on directory, escape, sit, say file, spammer, prick, lace, prick, say read, equals, say true, escape, on, constant file reader, method reader on file descriptor, escape, ship on, to do comment, close this file descriptor, escape, ship finds it, cap dollar, say descriptor, escape, on, defer, method close on file descriptor, semi, escape, kick drum, gym on, escape, urge, gym on, slap, binding line while. Try method on file reader. Escape. Ship find cap each, say file, score. Control backspace, say file. Score, say reader, escape. Find writes. Find writes. Sit, control space. Camel read until. Backspace, backspace, proper until. Go to down tabby. Ampersand, snake file buffer, escape. Find drum. Cap trap rise. Sing, backslash near, escape. Find race, sit slap. Unpack into position. Method index of. Made each made, escape. Find rise, sit. Urge 8, spamma, say line, spamma, say word, escape. Find pig, sit score, escape. Ship on. Comment, we don't care where we find it. Escape. Gym. Find race, sit slap. Try method print on standard out. Escape. Ship find drum, sit. Escape. Bat cap each. Snake standard out. Escape. Find rise, sit. Dub. Lace race, backslash near. Dub spamma. Pricks lace. Say line, escape. Ship air semi. Control sun. Escape. Space each pit. Space each pit. Escape. Space each pig. Find lack, sit, sun, escape. Control sun. Escape. Control trap. Zig build. Slap. Zig cache bin. Tabby. Say some, tabby. Space, say word, space. Source. Source. Backslash. Source. Backslash. Say main, prick, say zig. Slap. Go one up. Escape. Ship find whale, cap each, find near, escape. Ship airspace. Say build, prick, say zig, slap. Focus presentation. Press F5. Go to sleep. And so that's it for the demo. It went at varying levels, of course. So there are some pros and cons of Zig when it comes to coding by voice. Honestly, a lot of the cons have sort of been solved in time. When I started doing voice coding with Zig, it wasn't so easy because there are a lot of places that are hard to reach. Well, harder to reach. For example, if we look at the cons here, there are some C-isms and so on, like PTR and so on. That's pig trap red and so on. And I found that 3-letter words aren't so terrible when it comes to these. You can say 3-letter words and so on, but it becomes an issue when people call things like MSG buff and so on. These are not words, right? And there are way too many letters to actually say like this. And you can make grammars for these, but it's very tedious. Having to say pointer and having it write PTR it's not useful when it clashes with other rules and so on, right? Luckily, ZLS actually makes these things much easier. So that's essentially been solved, where CLS allows you to, for example, these words like args alloc and so on. These were fairly hard to reach probably before ZLS. This particular one, I don't know, I don't have any memory of struggling with, but ZLS makes it extremely easy to find this in a list of functions, right? And before that, this wasn't really a thing, right? Of course, Vim, I guess we had like Zig tags or something for Vim, but it wasn't really something that I used and so on. So it was fairly hard, right? I didn't really do much voice coding with Zig at the time. But yeah, CLS solves that. The fact that we have a small set of constructs, the language doesn't have all that many things inside of it, right? And a lot of the constructs, they actually follow the same pattern in some way, right? I have a grammar for type definitions, and most of them are actually fairly similar. I reuse the same functions inside of the code in order to output these, and we can look at these just a very short while to sort of show how the code looks and how the grammar looks, and how you can sort of see how Zig makes this fairly easy. On top of that, you actually have a thing that can seem tedious to a lot of people, I suppose, when you have a lot of signposts in your code for a language, right? The braces and things like that, right? And you use special signs for certain things, right? The reason I'm calling them signposts is because you can sort of follow them. You can jump around to them, right? And I didn't personally feel this as much when I was just using Vim typing, right? But you feel it more when you start code golfing your traversals, right? Because you're speaking these now. So jumping to a thing becomes a lot easier when you have a comma in places instead of just spaces between arguments and so on, right? Many languages, or some languages, prefer to not have any of these signposts because it's cleaner when you type, I suppose. But it turns out it's not a lot cleaner when you actually speak these things and when you have to jump around fairly effectively and so on. There are some obvious issues though. I made a grammar bit for calling conventions, and it uses precious few real words, of course, because one of them is C and one of them is actually naked, and that's a real word, so that's fine. But you end up having to make a grammar because std call is not actually something that you can just say even with your formatting constructs and so on. And conv is not actually a word either, so you kind of you have to make grammars for things. We still have a lot of these things. The reality though is that these are rarely used to some extent, right? You don't end up bumping into them so much, right? But yeah, let's just have a quick look at sort of the grammar code to sort of illustrate, like, here's what it kind of looks like, and then I will finish up the talk. Wake up, focus dragonfly. Zip trap, go to sleep. So here, obviously we can see that there's a lot of duplication here. Some of these are just, this is the easiest way to do it, but we're reusing a lot of things. And the thing that I was talking about here, we have this struct union enumeration. This actually reuses the same code. It's just a matter of changing the definition type here. This is literally just sort of passing different strings into this construct, right? This is because all of them are just const something equals something, right? And this is extremely easy. And probably to some extent, I suppose, I will eventually be also passing in functions here if we switch to this. I don't know if that's actually on the docket anymore, but it was at some point. So it might be that function types are also in this sort of area. But yeah, so we have different convenience grammars and so on. This is not a big grammar by any means. It doesn't support all of Zig, obviously. But there's a lot of flexibility here. Almost all of these constructs have a version where you don't say a name or you say a name and so on. And this is very easy to support. We essentially end up writing just normal Python code. Some of it is actually terrible, but that's also something that you end up with. If you think your Emacs code is terrible, then yes, your Python code for Dragonfly is going to be also terrible. But yeah, so let's, I have a few talks that I think people should watch. If I could go to the end. So I was inspired, and I think a lot of people are. I think almost everyone in their talk about this actually says that Tavis Rudd at PyCon 2013 was where they saw coding by voice the first time. I personally think when I have gained more perspective on it, that it wasn't so useful to actually figure out what coding by voice actually is. Because it seems like too much magic to some extent. David Williams King has a talk in 2016 at the 11th Hope where he actually goes through what does it mean to build a speech recognition engine, and he also goes through why he did that, and he also has tried to build an open source alternative because Dragon is proprietary. It's a paid thing. It costs a lot of money. And then I'm not going to attempt to say this name. I'm sorry. At PyGotham, this guy did a talk on coding by voice with Dragonfly, which is also good. And Emily Shea did a talk at Strange Loop 2019 doing the same. And I think she has a good demo of what people actually think coding by voice means at the beginning, and it's very comical. But yeah, that's it. If people want to see more demo stuff, I'm sort of hoping to show some stuff if I can. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. By the way, okay, let's switch to the Q&A view. By the way, your demo was amazing. I think everybody in Twitch chat was blown away. And as you said, doing it in front of people is very different than coding by yourself in your home. But I think it was also interesting for everybody to see how you can also fix problems, like react to misunderstandings with the voice software, by the way. And yeah, everybody was very much surprised. So thank you very much. The demo was amazing.
It's extremely, my heart was going places, I can tell you, during this. There were way more errors, but the truth is also there will be errors. Like you said, the voice recognition engine actually, it tries to make sense out of what you say, and a lot of code doesn't make sense as sentences, right? So yeah, you end up doing some Vim modifications and so on at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the important part is that you have the Vim layer to make these modifications, right? Because that's essentially these small incisions into code is where the Vim layer actually shines, right? That's why you need it. Otherwise, we could just speak perfect code all the time and make no changes. But this is not reality, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, makes a lot of sense. So there was like a small question / discussion while you were presenting about escaping keywords. So at one point, I believe you said say, then a sequence of words, and then you ended with escape, but the escape or slap, but the slap was taken as a new line, not as the literal word slap. So I am assuming it's a matter of pauses. Is that it?
Well, it's essentially a matter of precedence, and I suppose also pauses. But yeah, if you, I honestly haven't noticed if I pause before I say escape. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. The truth is, I think escape has precedence, right? So that key will essentially always end a thing. But yes, the software has a certain time limit for reacting to commands. So if you do wait it out, you're essentially going to start executing what you said. So you batch all these things together and then it executes it, right? So yes, you can wait, and it effectively at that point you will certainly just execute a new command. You will not be continuing the dictation that you were doing, right? Because these formatting commands, yes, they are essentially a formatting command and then a dictation. So for example, if we say proper, this is a test, we get this is a test altogether with title case, right? I could show this, of course. I don't know if this perhaps wasn't necessarily something that people were confused about, but just to be clear, wake up, disable Zig, enable Python, sit, comment proper hello, this is a test. Escape, ship find pig, bat cap dollar, proper this is a test. Escape, ship airspace, camel this is a test. Space, barbecue this is a test. Space, say this is a test. Space, uppercase this is a test. Escape, air, space, snake this is a test. Escape, go to sleep. So yeah, this is what the formatting commands essentially are all about. And when you can slot these in, you're fine to just do so, right? But yeah, if it's about pauses, I haven't noticed. It's just maybe natural pauses. I don't really know. But escape is effectively will always take precedence. You will exit insert mode. I don't know if people noticed, but I do actually pause after escape. And this is not because of the grammar or the Dragonfly plugin or anything. This is actually because of VS Code. I don't know if I can illustrate this. Perhaps I can. I'm going to try, and we'll see how this sort of manifests. And this is an issue, but it's an issue with VS Code. Wake up, ship airspace, sit, escape, sit, go to sleep. So I said sit, escape, sit, which means I, escape, I, which should have just gone into insert mode again. But what you get in VS Code is actually you get an extra I at the end there. And then you exit insert mode. So effectively you get whatever you said before the escape, rather after the escape, you get before you exit insert mode. And this is because VS Code is slow. That's actually the output for some of these constructs is actually slower to exit and so on because of VS Code. In NeoVim or Vim, these would be faster. And that's sad, but it's not a showstopper. And it's because of this issue. When you exit insert mode, you have to wait a little bit before you do new things. And yeah, I don't know if it's Electron or whatever it is, but that's sort of how it is.
I see. So out of curiosity, how would you write escape in a command then?
Oh, well, actually, okay, hang on. Wake up, on, hashtag space, say escape, space, snake, this is escape, go to sleep. I think this illustrates the thing, right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, so you end up, if you actually have already said things, escape will always exit, right? Which means that, yes, this is a special case. You just have to deal with that. You end up running into a lot of special cases where you're like, okay, how often do I actually need to say escape?
Yeah, sure.
I will take the fact that I have to say escape, right? But this is tedious, yes. There's a lot of tedium when it comes to a lot of these things.
Yeah, and this all boils down to the way you set up your grammars, right? You could have a different setup.
Yeah. I've seen people actually use, well, there's a program called Voice Attack. I don't know if people have heard about it. Voice Attack essentially lets you speak commands. They're fairly simplistic in comparison, but I saw one person, don't remember his name, very sorry to that guy, but he had a video on coding with Voice Attack where he actually went into dictation mode, and then he said essentially exit dictation mode. And at that point, you're not using escape to exit, right? You're just saying, I'm done dictating, program, output, whatever I said. And for that kind of mode, yes, you can just say whatever you want inside of there, and then you have this magic phrase that you will never ever say in normal usage that ends dictation mode.
Your safe word. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So this, I guess, answers basically one question. Another question, so you showed Python. What other languages are you able to program in using the voice system?
Well, okay, so I have this one that I've named Curry. And this is, it's named Curry because it's not only for Haskell, it's also for pure script. I work with Haskell, and I do it by voice, at least lately. Haskell is not all that great for voice coding, it turns out. When I mentioned languages that refuse to use commas between words and so on, Haskell is one of them. Haskell has a very Haskell doesn't have auto formatters either, so that's an issue. But yeah, this grammar is for Haskell. It's significantly smaller, not because Haskell requires less, but because it's not as thought out as the Zig one. And I use this for Haskell, and I've used it for PureScript as well. So this one is for both of those. You can see up here, I also have JavaScript, but it's actually for TypeScript because, well, you know. I didn't actually show my terminal grammar. This is not obviously a programming language, but it does have these, for example, wake up, focus demo, control trap, Zig build, slap, Zig build cache, control cap, Zig cache bin, control cap, Zig cache bin, tabby, say some, tabby, space, say word, space. Actually, I did show this. Did I not? Well, actually, I did show this.
Yeah, you showed the
Now
problem
I'm
invocation.
just confused. Oh yeah, so I have this terminal grammar that sort of allows this, right? Focus dragonfly. Go to sleep. Also, well, I started out doing this actually in Elixir. So yes, that one as well. I haven't looked at that grammar though for a long time. But it shares a lot with the Python grammar, I suppose. But I would say the one that I've actually worked the most on, and I think this is common for a lot of people who use Dragonfly, is that you are forced to write a lot of Python. So you end up doing a lot in your Python grammar. And yeah, Python is actually fairly easy when it comes to this. But yeah, probably Python is the one that's most developed, except the Zig one actually covers more corners, let's say. I have some bits of the Zig grammar that deal with very interesting things. Let's see if I can find this here. So I have a typecast grammar that figures out what casting you should use, depending on what you actually say. I don't know if I can demo this. Wake up, disable Python, enable Zig. Let's see. Sit, cast something into U64. Slap, cast something. Escape, on. Cast something into float 64. Escape, on. Cast something into short. Escape, on. Cast something into character. Escape, go to sleep, and so on. So I think I cover more of Zig as a language because you sort of need to. And I've probably done more interesting things when it comes to Zig than any other language so far. And these would be among those things.
That's very interesting. Okay, thank you all also for showing that snippet. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see, other questions. Let me see. I know we have a couple more at least. So when you're coding, how do you make sure your voice keeps clear enough?
I don't. I mean, that's the simple answer. Is first of all, I didn't mention this in the talk. I should have clearly. You get voice strain if you do this. Like if you do this for work, your voice is going to take a beating. It's not just your hands that take a beating. Your voice definitely will be tired at times. I've also been sick lately, so that certainly doesn't make it better. right? So yeah, your voice first of all will deteriorate over a day. You will notice it because you speak all the time, right? This is not normal. You shouldn't talk that much. So that's one thing. And also, I don't enunciate clearly. So I at least end up in situations where Dragon constantly mishears me. And it just, yeah, these are just things that I have to deal with, right? And I think at least as a non-native speaker, you definitely will have odd pronunciations of stuff, right? And this is inevitable. I don't think really, well, to be fair, I don't think native speakers also would have just pronunciation that Dragon figures out completely either. You end up in situations where, for example, you can't say git and have it assume that you're saying git the command, right? I have a terminal command especially for this because it thinks you're saying, like people from the South in the US say, go on git. So, so it thinks you're saying get. You're actually saying git fairly clearly. Like it's not an issue with you. It's an issue with just how it thinks you're speaking. And you can actually set where you're from in Dragon. So it's not that the product doesn't take this into account, but I've set it to neutral English because I don't have an English, like an American accent, right? But it just assumes he couldn't be saying git. He has to be saying get, right? Because that's what normal. But yeah.
I see. We have another question from Andrew. Does all this voice practice help you to sing?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't sing. I haven't tried. So no, I wouldn't assume so. Because yeah, actually, I would think that if someone spends their day coding by voice, they're not going to be doing gigs on the side. Is what I'm actually going to say. It just will strain your voice, I think. I think you can make this better somehow. I don't really do enough to sort of combat this. I guess I will in the future. But in truth, the real plan is to do maybe 50% voice, 50% keyboard in the future. Lately, I've been doing 100% keyboard or 100% voice the last month, for example, right? I don't think that's necessarily what you want to do, though, like in the long run. You can type. You just don't type when your hands hurt, and also don't type all the time is basically the plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. I think I have a last one. Actually, no, there's one from Benjamin. By the way, you gave yourself away. The question is, can you do more accents? I think the one worked really well.
Actually, let's try one. I'm gonna try if Dragon figures out what I'm saying during this one, because I think this one is interesting. Wake up, ship on, say coffee, go to sleep. I suppose it does know that you're saying coffee, but yeah, I don't know. No, I can't really do a lot of accents. No. But yeah, this one, the get one, I've thought a lot about, right? Why would it think that I'm saying get? Well, the only thing I can reconcile this with is obviously it thinks I'm from the South and I'm shooing someone off my property, I suppose. I don't know why it would think so, but yeah.
Okay, so final question for me. You mentioned StarCraft. What's your favorite race? How often did you cheese people in ladder?
Okay, so I was one of those insufferable Zerg players,
of course,
that refused to cheese for a long time.
Oof.
A long time, because
So,
I was like, that's not honorable.
So you got cheesed
shouldn't do that.
You got cheesed by Protoss then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Just yeah, it was 4 gates back in the day, and then yeah.
Right.
So, but then I started only cheesing for a while, because I saw No Regret. If someone knows this player, he is famous for doing early pools, literally every game, and I thought that was fantastic. So I was like, well, you can have fun also, right?
Yeah.
But yes, mostly a macro player though, to be clear. Not a very good one, but you try honorably.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we have another question that came in the meantime. Can non-English languages be used?
I wouldn't know. I think dictation works, right? For German, Russian, Spanish, English, as far as I know. Can you use them for actual programming? I wouldn't know. I don't know any of those languages. I know Swedish, English, and Bulgarian. So the only one that's open to me is English. And if I'm being completely honest, I wouldn't assume that any of the non-English ones are all that useful outside of like business emails and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say, like watching your presentation made me realize that I'm kind of disappointed that there's this group of people working with artificial intelligence, doing all kind of crazy things, and they are focusing on plain data matches and other stuff. While this, I think it would be a perfect use case for a more, let's say, flexible system that tries to mold itself after your tone, your pronunciation, your own quirks, and I think this could be probably a perfect example of a good use case for a machine learning type of approach.
Well, yeah, I think so too. The problem is, of course, Google actually has a service that does voice recognition, right? And you can actually tap into this, get results back, and so on. Someone has actually made this. They've interfaced with this with Dragonfly. They've made a layer to talk to Google's stuff. I wouldn't use it if I'm being honest, but that's because I don't like Google. So if it's sent to another server, I probably wouldn't really use it. Do I trust the Nuance, the company that makes Dragon? Well, not completely, I suppose. But I do think that they're kind of, harkening back to what you're saying, they're kind of the only game in town when it comes to actually delivering a solution. So yeah, I would want to see more energy being spent here, perhaps, right? The issue is, of course, like what would that take in terms of shape, right? I want something to run locally. And it should be said, Nuance actually, they're not, as far as I can tell, they're not the most robust necessarily, but they do actually do learning on your patterns and so on. So there is some level of adaptation that goes into, well, when you use Dragon over time, it will figure out kind of what you're saying. As an example of this, I don't understand exactly what has happened over time, but I don't think it ever recognized grep before. But now when I say grep, it realizes that I mean grep. And I think that wasn't the case before. So I do think that it's learned something from, I don't really know what. Like when I've chosen to spell something and it sort of has recognized, okay, that was actually grep. That's what he meant. But then again, I mean, this might be me just seeing something where there's nothing. I don't know. But there is some level of adaptation here. I would like more energy being spent on it, though, especially the open source alternatives. I've tried one called Kaldi, and it's unfortunately not. It's not useful. Like when I started doing this, I actually had to get going, right? Because I was still working, and at the time I was working a lot of hours per month. So I needed to have something that actually worked, and Dragon definitely actually works.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before we leave, I also want to mention that Rickard has a YouTube channel where he put a few, how many videos of yourself typing? Voice coding.
Well, yeah, typing sort of. Yeah, I don't know what I'm up at. I'm like, it's 8 or something. Effectively, it's actually it's chronicled my journey from only using essentially the Vim stuff and formatting into using this advanced grammar for Zig programs. What you saw is the latest iteration of writing Zig code with my stuff. I've also made that repository public, the actual bindings, the actual grammar and so on. I guess I will. I'm Gons on IRC and something very similar on Discord. So if anyone wants more information about anything really, I'm also available there. I don't know if I've given the channel to you, maybe?
You did, and I just posted it in Twitch chat.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. That channel has a few videos. It has some helpful tips about sort of how to do things. Also some neat browser plugins that become very useful when you only speak commands, right? And so on. But yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the part that everybody liked the most. Everybody was going crazy during your demo, but the thing that really everybody enjoyed, which I hope you don't mind. I think I'm gonna steal, is how you bound slap to new line. Ending everything with a slap sounds perfect.
Yeah, there's also prick. I think people probably like that one. But yeah, it actually turns out that, I mean, prick is obviously a neat word to say also, but it's also dot in Swedish. So it's sort of matched. It's nice to say prick. And also you're saying dot, but you're saying it in Swedish, but with sort of an American lean or whatever.
Nice. Great. So thank you very much. Any final words before we end the show?
Not really. Take care of your hands. Stop typing if it hurts, or even before it hurts. It's gonna happen to you. It's gonna happen to everyone basically at some point. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
we can now move to the end of the show. So